Welcome back to Locked On Chiefs. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find a number of those shows here on YouTube as well as out there on every podcast platform. Make sure you get subbed someplace, one or the other. We have a great show for you. We're going to talk about who are the biggest threats to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC in 2021. What does the AFC West look like, especially if there's one major addition? And can you actually add a player off of another roster at this point in the season that can actually have an impact? We're going to get into all those topics, especially about one N'Keal Harry, coming up next. This is Locked On Chiefs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back. It's Friday, so we're going to have a fun discussion about really what it all comes down to. And Chris, we have to start, I think, with what we've gotten away from because it's summertime and that's what happens. But take a look at the other teams in the AFC that can actually push this team to try to knock them out of the playoffs, try to keep them from getting back to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you could make a case that there's different teams in the AFC that pose a threat when you talk about the Super Bowl, but you start looking at the AFC in general, and I think that, at least to me right now, with the way teams are, I think there's three teams that really stand out to me, although there probably could be an argument made for a fourth and maybe even a fifth, depending on how a certain superstar shakes out.
Well, and I'm guessing that most of them are on the schedule. So let's start with your top three.
Top three, I think the number one is going to be the Buffalo Bills. I do think that they are going to, after being in the AFC championship game last year, they're going to try to repeat, obviously, this year and try to get to the Super Bowl this year. I do think they are a very good team. I do think that they have some weaknesses, and I think that's something that Kansas City is going to have to adjust to and face this year, but I think the Chiefs are better this year than they were last year, so I like their chances getting back. Number two, probably still going to be Baltimore for me. I just think that you look at their quarterback situation with Lamar Jackson, and he's a phenomenal player. Granted, he is not the pure passer that you normally have at that position, but he is a fantastic player. And he is a former league MVP, and those types of guys can elevate an entire roster. So wouldn't surprise me for them to be up there with Kansas City. Number three might be a cross between two different teams. And what I mean by that is it's really hard for me to pick a number three. I think the Cleveland Browns, everybody's talking about the Cleveland Browns. I get it. They have a very talented roster. The question is, how are they going to play together? That's what you have to figure out early on in the season. But the other one that I think really could be thrown out there that has given Kansas City trouble in the past is Tennessee Titans. Mm-hmm. With Julio Jones, what's going to change with that offense and how more dynamic is it going to become this year?
Well, dynamic and balanced. So you can't set up game plans like you have in the past to really try to take away one thing or one player and, take your chances with the rest. You have to be balanced. You have to be able to have a concept of, especially those middle ground players against the Tennessee Titans. And I agree with you on all three of those teams. I think they're all capable of pushing them, but the Titans in particular are going to stress the middle tier of this defense, the safeties in the box and the linebacker level. It's going to be tricky. And they played them, week 8, I think? 7. So the Tennessee Titans there, it is in Tennessee. That's going to be on the schedule. And then we know the other two that you named, Cleveland and Baltimore, who should be beating the snot out of each other most of the year. They're the first 2 weeks. We're going to have a good inkling about where things are right off the bat.
Yeah, Kansas City does not get any love from the schedule makers in that regard.
No, and things get worse. Like I'm not terribly concerned about the Steelers. They do have a good pass rush. With Watt out there, but I think they've shown that where they are quarterback-wise, that they're not going to keep up with the other two, I think. So you get those guys weeks 1 and 2, then Buffalo's week 5, and then Tennessee is week 7. So you mentioned a couple others that we might be able to put in there. Of all those, I just can't feel like – you have to get Baltimore to come together on their receiving core, right?
Yep.
You have to get Cleveland to come together on their defense and their secondary, who's had guys hurt for, 3 years.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if I'm going to see any of those two teams in particular survive the Bills and the Titans. I would put the Bills and Titans above them right now.
And I could see that. I mean, you didn't mention the Bills, so you believe that you're with me, though, that they're probably the number one threat to the Chiefs?
Right now, I would probably put them 3. I think the Titans are a little bit more formidable just because of the matchups that the Chiefs face and what the Chiefs' weaknesses are. But I will say this. I do think that Josh Allen is going to be one of the 2 guys chasing Patrick Mahomes all season.
Okay. So who's your number one?
I would still put Tennessee as the top there, but the number 1 guy that's going to be chasing him, I think, is going to be in the division and a team we haven't talked about.
Well, okay, so who's your number 2 team then?
It would be the Bills.
Well, you said they were 3, so that's why I was confused.
Oh, I just meant in that 3-team race. So I think the Titans are most formidable, then the Bills. Then I think I'm probably leaning overall still at Baltimore over Cleveland. I don't know about you.
I get it, and I can't argue with that much. Although, like I said, it's all on paper right now, and that's basically what you have to go on at this time of year. Is the Cleveland Browns look extremely formidable on paper. Now, granted, it hasn't ever worked out well for them, and the biggest question mark that they have to get answered is Baker Mayfield going to be able to ascend? Because if he can't, it's not going to matter what the rest of the team does.
Yeah, I mean, there's
that
all
roster
kinds
can
of
carry him. What was that?
There's all kinds of how far they can go, but it is all based on him. And I do think the 2 best backs in this league are on this schedule in Derrick Henry, obviously, with the Titans, but also in Nick Chubb, who I think could hurt them a number of different ways. And if you get that elevated play from the quarterback, that makes a powerful 1-2 punch. Not saying that it was that close. Had Patrick Mahomes been in that playoff game, I don't think that that's close. But I do feel like they've inched forward. Maybe the Chiefs have too, but we have to see that.
It's true. And that's honestly what it comes down to. On paper, again, the Chiefs' offensive line is a lot better than last year. Granted, they're not going to have Sammy Watkins, but really they didn't have Sammy Watkins most of last year either. So, that's kind of a wash. And the question is how are they going to change on offense? Because Reed is going to have something new this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a couple other teams that I think can push them. One in particular is in the division, but you know what? I think we're going to have to hold that because we're going to talk about the division here coming up in a minute. And before we get to that, we got to tell you about our pals. The easiest way to put your action is to go to BetOnline and get all you need over there. Whether it's the baseball season, whether it's the NLB, whether it's whatever you're into, if it's a sporting action, you can find it there. You can find your information, the news, the sign-up bonuses, and all the contest information at betonline.ag. Don't sit on the sidelines. This is your chance to get into the game and have some outcome. Head to their website on whatever device you use, and you'll get 50% welcome bonus on top of what you deposit. That's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts, and use our promo code LOCKEDON and let them know that we sent you over there. Now, the big thing, and I don't think there's 2 here, but I want to start with the team that we haven't mentioned, and that's that it's all about staying healthy. And if they can do that, I think Justin Herbert might be that 3rd quarterback that's pushing Patrick in terms of having an offense that can actually put out points.
Possibly. And I will reserve my right to say what I think about the Chargers just because I'm not sold on the rest of their offense around him. I think that they do have pieces. The question is, and Keenan Allen stayed healthy the past couple of seasons. Is that going to continue? He's still getting up there in age. So is that going to continue to work out for them? Where does their second threat come from? Is it going to be Williams? Who's going to be that guy? In the running game, how's that going to work out for him? I do think that they have a lot of pieces. I think that it'll work out well in a lot of it. But the other question is their offensive line going to be better? Because they have to continue to improve in that to get Justin Herbert to really have the ability to reach the next level in his game.
Yeah, they brought over Filer, brought in Bulaga. They have a couple of guys that I think can upgrade what they were. Does it take them all the way up there? Corey Linsley. I always forget about him. I don't know why. That's just
do they stay healthy?
Yeah, and again, it all comes back to that for that particular organization. Just a side note, I didn't realize this until just now, but Ryan Hunter, old Chiefs favorite, is on that roster currently, so that's an interesting twist. But in the end, I think the quarterback's really interesting if they can stay healthy enough to support him. I think that puts them right behind the Chiefs, and maybe even in chase position. You never know. But the bigger question is what else happens within the division, right? And, playing golf with Tom Brady will make you say stuff, and Aaron Rodgers is not giving it away what's going to happen. I kind of feel like at this point it's probably done with. Whether he's going to be traded or whether he's not. He decided not to opt out. Doesn't look like he's going to file retirement papers. So he's either going to play in Green Bay or he's going to get traded somewhere. And everybody likes to talk about the Denver Broncos being that most popular destination. That changes the division significantly for me because I think it makes them nearly as competent as those Chargers if Aaron Rodgers does land in Denver. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I want to throw out a real dark horse before we get into the Aaron Rodgers conversation, though. You look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at Justin Herbert. If Aaron Rodgers comes in here, that's quite the trio in the division. What do you do if you're Las Vegas? Don't forget, they still have the ability to go make a move, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Deshaun Watson end up in Vegas.
Oh, my Lord. That even without Deshaun, I would have said, hey, this is shaping up if that Rodgers trade happens to be, in terms of quarterbacks only, the best division in football. But if Deshaun Watson lands in here as well, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, but he's the guy that nobody ever talks about anymore because it's just so we don't know what's going to happen with any of it at this point. You would think he's not going to be in Houston anymore. He said he's not going to play in Houston anymore. But is Houston going to trade him, and is he even going to be available to be playing this year? We don't know any of that.
Right.
I just wanted to throw it out there because Las Vegas and Denver were both places that Watson was rumored to go before the whole Aaron Rodgers thing happened. And I can't imagine that he couldn't end up in Las Vegas, especially if Aaron Rodgers ends up in Denver, because Gruden is going to desperately want to upgrade that position.
He's not going to look around and go, listen, Carr, you're my man.
Right.
I mean,
not
he's
with
crazy,
Aaron
but
Rodgers,
he's not
Herbert,
that
and
crazy.
Mahomes. Yeah. So, but we started this conversation talking about Aaron Rodgers, and I agree with you. Like, if he goes to Denver, that's a huge upgrade for them. And I think that really puts them in the ability to go after Kansas City. But the bigger question is when does that trade get done? Because it's not going to matter if it gets done week 8 and they're already 3 games back in the division. Generally speaking, that's probably not going to be something that they're going to be able to overcome.
Maybe not, but his presence makes the fact that the Chiefs don't play them until week 13 and then the last week of the season makes that formidable for what the Chiefs are chasing, which I expect to be the number 1 seed, and having to play Aaron Rodgers twice.
No, and I agree with that, but I guess I'm looking at just the division and winning the division for the 5th year in a row. At that point, it's a question of if they're already 3 games back in the division, which is possible if he doesn't show up till week 8 or week 9, which we still don't know when this trade is going to happen, then is it going to really matter that much this year? I mean, yes, it could keep Kansas City from getting the number 1 seed, and that's formidable in and of itself, but he would basically have to step in and go undefeated the rest of the season. Yeah. And I have a really hard problem believing that would happen, considering he'd be stepping into a new offense with new players that he has no chemistry with. And yes, he's a great quarterback, but that's a very hard position to step into.
That seems like the only hurdle, though. If he can put some of his things aside and they can put some of their things aside, maybe they make that work, because I think they're just a quarterback short of being very competitive.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, it could be the only thing out there, but I still think it's a bigger thing with having no time to practice with those players before you play your first game. I mean, literally, we're talking how many snaps is Mahomes going to have with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce this season before Aaron Rodgers would even have one with his top 3 wide receivers at Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, 500,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
You have a feel for your guys. He's not going to have a feel for any of his guys.
True.
And there's only so much you can do to get up to speed on that. So,
yeah,
I do think that'll play a part. But I expect that to be dealt with before. I actually think he's going to get dealt. If he's going to get dealt, it will be before the season, because I don't think the Packers want to deal with the headache of having him sit out and be asked about it for the first 9 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I doubt that as well. I just can't decide if I think that the front office there is going to give in or not. So,
it's hard to know.
Office, they get taxed. It's difficult. Running an organization is difficult, especially with that kind of stuff hanging out there. They're not the only ones. There's a trade demand in New England right now that I know a lot of Chiefs fans want to know about. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Available this week only, July 6th through the 9th. Get the new Built Bar flavor grasshopper cookie. What does it taste like? This is Built Bar's version of the classic Thin Mint cookie. All the flavor without all that sugar. 150 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 5 grams of sugar. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? Coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mix box where you get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Not only are their Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. Check out the macros. 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Order today and get the grasshopper cookie or raspberry or whatever you like. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code Locked On for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
I got to say, I dig the grasshopper ones.
They're good.
Yeah, they are. I dig receivers that actually make plays too. And I'm not sure where we're going with that one in terms of this trade that all of Chiefs Kingdom seems to be talking about. There was an interesting perspective put out on Thursday that I think kind of lays the groundwork for what that decision making is.
Yeah, and I think it's, you look at what the Harry designation is, and Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said he talked to league exec who estimates Harry will be worth a conditional 6th round pick. Teams are expected to have interest. Harry will be looking for an offense to utilize his ability to be a contested catch guy, his size and strength in the red zone and deep. Speed and precision offense, probably not for him. So I would say that's pretty much exactly the reason why Kansas City would not be making this trade.
Yeah, I mean, I am of 2 minds, to tell you the truth. A conditional 6th is not a huge investment. We've seen them do this a number of times before. He does fit the one thing they don't have, the overly big body that can still move around. They can still go over the top of coverage. And is a physical presence. We talked about that the other day. But like you said, if you were going to describe the West Coast offense, especially Andy Reid's version of it, it would be speed and precision, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's why he doesn't fit. I will say, and I will argue this, if you wanted to make the argument that you could trade for him and get him for a conditional 6th, and if you can think that there's value there, I think you make the offer and make the trade. From Kansas City's perspective, yes, he doesn't necessarily fit the offense, but he fits a mold of something that they don't have on this offense, and it is a guy that can be a contested catch guy. It is a guy that can go in the red zone and be a guy that can go up and get the ball. They don't really have that right now. I mean, yeah, Travis Kelce.
They don't use it either.
Well, they don't use it, but they don't have it. So who are they going to use it with right now? Who are they going to put out there that could be that guy?
That's fair. But when they had Chris Conley, who is that guy with the best vertical leap in the history of the combine, they didn't use it then either.
It's true. Yep. No, and like I said, I understand what you're saying. My only argument would be it's the one type of wide receiver that they don't really have on this offense. And I do think there's value there. But the other question is can you get a guy like their new tight end? Can Noah Gray be that type of guy that can go up and be a contested catch guy? Is he going to give you that ability? Are you going to have any of the young guys that we don't know that are going to be on the roster be that guy? I don't think they make this move because I don't think he fits the roster overall. But for a late 6th, I could see it if they want to put that type of piece into this offense. Because there are situations where you want to be able to have somebody that will give you the ability to go up and get a jump ball. And yes, Travis Kelce can catch in tight spaces, and yes, he can do that kind of stuff, but you really don't want him taking those types of hits either. So
yeah, that's fair. I guess
especially at his age.
And there's always the possibility. I mean, we've talked about how they are likely to run more power and gap in the run game. Maybe they're going to start throwing it up to the corners more. Maybe fades are now something that Patrick's going to do. They could change that up for certain. And I think if they did go after him, that might signal that, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, and they can still do fades with the receivers that they have in some regards. You're just not going to have the type of fades that you are used to seeing some of the receivers do. Like, you're going to have the speed guys that are, beating the corners to the corner as opposed to, just straight up jump balls in the end zone.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I do think that Kansas City is not going to be in on this trade. I just don't see it happening for the type of player he is. I know there were a lot of Chiefs fans that wanted him when he was drafted, so it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of people talking about it now. But again, like you said, and like I said earlier, he doesn't fit the offense. He doesn't fit their normal mold. Are you willing? And I guess there's the other argument again, like I said, are you willing to put a package in that will give him the ability to do what he does best?
Yeah.
Because if he does have the speed to be in this offense, and maybe he doesn't have the precision, but he has the speed to do certain things, you can put a package in or two for a guy that could be your fourth or fifth wide receiver. I think that there's value there if you think he can score you a handful of touchdowns in the season.
Yeah. I mean, and we all know about short yardage situations. If you're talking goal line short yardage, maybe it makes it a viable option. We'd like to know what you guys think. Do you really want him, given this discussion and the two opposite sides of this argument? Do you want N'Keal Harry in there? Do you think that this could be the best division in football in 2021? And who do you think are the biggest threats of the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC playoffs? We're going to look forward to seeing those results, both on Locked On Chiefs on Twitter, in the iTunes reviews. If you would leave those for us with a nice 5 stars, we always appreciate that. And leave your comments down below on YouTube. Make sure you like and sub and hit that bell notification on YouTube as well. Hope that you guys enjoy your weekend. We're getting that much closer to actually having football to talk about on a daily basis. We'll be here for you every day, every week. Thanks for Chris. Thanks for me. Thanks for all of you. We'll talk to you next time.